I'm about to tell you three important study tips that helped me get through PT school and acupuncture school. And I had to stick to these things because I had no time and I had no choice but to stick to these things. Because when I was going through acupuncture school, I was working a full time job, I was planning for a wedding, I was also working two extra jobs to pay for that wedding. And then we had the actual wedding, and then we went on a mini moon, and then we moved in for the first time together, all that jazz. You get the picture. So when I think back on that time, I realized it really boiled down to these three things. And number one is to have a plan. And I mean, actually have a plan, because when you have a plan, that means that you're well prepared and you know exactly what you need to do. There's a quote from Abraham Lincoln that says, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I'll spend the first four sharpening the axe." And what this quote means is that we need to be efficient with our study time. And in order for us to be efficient, we need to prepare. And the best way to prepare is to have a plan. And that's because prior planning prevents poor performance. And so, whatever topic I needed to study for, I would first prepare by getting a layout of the land. For example, I had a test coming up and it was liver and gallbladder. Now we know liver has 14 points, gallbladder has 44 points. So if you add that together, that's a total of 58 points that I needed to study for. Now there was 10 days until the exam, not including weekends. So I divided 58 over 10 days. So 58 over 10 days, that's about 6 points a day. And then what I would do is I would take out my planner. So I would use a weekly planner and I would use a daily planner. And I would plot out those exact 6 points over those 10 days. So I know exactly what I'm doing every day. For example, Monday, I'm going to do liver 1, 2, and 3. And I'm also going to review gallbladder 1, 2, and 3. And on Tuesday, I'm going to go over liver 4, 5, and 6. And I'm also going to go over gallbladder 4, 5, and 6. Now, you can download the kind of planner that I used from my website. Just go to www.studyacuwithme.com. You can actually download it there for free. And so with the planner, I would make a goal for the whole week, which for 1 week, I would review 30 points because I'm doing 6 points a day, 5 weekdays, and that's 30. And then I just go into the daily part of the planner and I would look to see what time slots I had available. And here's where self-awareness needed to come into play, because you need to know yourself. Because if you're like me, during that time, I was juggling full-time work, I was juggling two extra jobs, I was trying to be present with my fiance so that she still marries me, all the while trying to fulfill my family obligations that they needed me for. And with any time left, I tried to have a social life. And so that's why when I put these time slots into my schedule, it was like I was writing a contract with myself, and I would hold myself to that time, and I would choose that time as wisely as possible to the best of my ability, and I would stick to it, which means I would do the best I could to make the conditions of studying as optimal as possible. It's like when you go to a gym class, like maybe you go to a group yoga class. So when you step into that room, what do you see? You see yoga mats, you see yoga blocks, there's dim lights, there's music. What don't you see? You don't see a calculator to the side in case somebody wants to do their taxes. You just see everything that you need for yoga. So likewise, when you study, you've got to prime the time that you have. And that's actually tip number two. So tip number two is to prime the time that you have. And you can prime the time that you have by having an optimal workspace. Because if you can't control the time that you want to be studying, you can at least control the environment that you're studying in. And you can do this by creating an optimal workspace, which an optimal workspace is one that's number one, free of distractions. And number two, it's yours. And by yours, I mean be proud of it. So make it clean. Any messes on your desk that can take your attention away from the task at hand, clear it away and just leave what you need and only what you need on your desk. And that means your phone isn't one of them. Because leaving things on your desk that have nothing to do with studying can actually draw your attention away from studying. For example, one time I had a stack of bills clipped to a clipboard on the side of my desk, and my monkey brain, of course, focuses on it while I'm trying to study. So what do? I spend almost an hour planning out when I'm going to have enough money so that I could pay this bill and that bill. And then before I knew it, the time that I had blocked off for me to study ran out. So lesson learned for me, clear the clutter and just focus only on studying. All right. And tip number three, and actually arguably the most important tip, is just to show up, because half the battle is just showing up. So when you do set those times for studying, show up, even if you don't feel like it, because you've got to keep showing up to those study sessions in order for you to pass the exam. And preparing for an exam isn't a one-time thing. It's consistently showing up because you said you would. You made a plan. You set a time, you set a date, and you're a person who makes plans and sticks to them. This is how I would talk to myself. For example, you can't just brush your teeth once and then never brush them again and expect not to have cavities. You can't just show up to the gym one time and expect to have a six pack. You have to show up day in and day out. And that reminds me of my favorite quote by Frank Collier. And that quote goes like this: "Success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out." So even if you made a plan, for example, to study 6 points that day and you were only able to get through 3, success is the sum of small efforts repeated day in and day out. So tomorrow, when it's time to study again, show up again, because that consistency over time will only lead to your success. So again, starting at the top, tip number 1 is to have a plan, which means to be prepared. Know the layout of the land so you know exactly what you need to study for. And tip number 2 is to prime the time. So prime the time by making an optimal work environment, one that's clean, free of distractions, and is yours. And then tip number 3 is to show up. Show up even when you don't feel like showing up, because showing up is half the battle. And then a bonus tip, which honestly I wish I told myself more when I was going through all that intensive studying, is just to enjoy the journey. Because when you think about it, it's actually a privilege that we get to learn this medicine. Acupuncture is an amazing intervention, and it's a beautiful way of life. Every day as an acupuncturist, you get to help people, you get to meet all different kinds of people, and when you meet other acupuncturists, they're just the nicest of people. And every day through your treatments, you get to find out more and more about how deep this beautiful medicine goes. So try as much as you can to enjoy the journey of studying acupuncture, because it really is a privilege to study it and to share it with others. All right, and if you made it this far into this episode, first of all, thank you. Thank you for sticking with me. And second of all, I want you to know that it's a privilege for me that you're choosing to support this channel and choosing to study acupuncture with me. So until next time, everyone, God bless and happy studying.